On this episode of Warikoo, I go about teaching you how to learn something completely new. So we're always learning in life. In fact, the most precious thing that there can be in life is to forever be a student, to be so curious that you can pick up anything new, irrespective of the fact whether you're in school or in college or outside of school and college living your adult life. If you have the ability to learn something new from scratch, just as you would if you were a student, then you are a superpower. Then you can literally do anything that you want, anytime that you want, anywhere that you want. And this three-step process that I explained to you today is hopefully going to help you in picking up anything that's new that you've never done before and learn how to do it very quickly. Before that, there's a very important thing that you need to know about yourself, and that is, how do you actually go about learning new things? There are 5 ways that we go about learning new things, and most of us learn things in different ways. We're not necessarily just always learning by listening to someone in a classroom, which is the most normal method that we were taught in school, or by reading through a book, which is what most of us have fallen through. There are 5 ways, and those are: you can learn by watching someone do something, you can learn by listening to someone say something, you can learn by writing down what you wish to learn, you can learn by hearing what is it that someone should be telling you, and last, you can learn by doing something, even without listening or watching someone else do it. These 5 things, watching, listening, reading, writing, and doing, are the 5 basic ways why any human can learn and learn anything. And it's shocking how many of us do not know which of these 5 is our dominant way of learning. And that's something that you need to investigate. That's something that you need to spend time on. It's quite likely you don't learn anything new by reading. It's quite likely that your natural default or your dominant way of learning is not by listening. It's by watching, or maybe it's just by doing. But it is important that you spend time investigating, finding out, going back into your past to see, when is it that you really enjoyed learning? When is it that you were really good at learning? And what is it? Which of these 5 forms were those that were the dominant way, which explains why you learned or you enjoyed that process of learning. But once you do, is when the journey begins. Because the important thing in learning anything new is to making sure that you learn it in the way that you learn best. Is to learn it not necessarily by what is it that the world has laid out for you in the forms of delivery, but you go out and create your own form of consumption that helps you become a student in the pure sense of it, in the joyous sense of it. So 3 months back, I had this moment where I said, what would it be for me to conduct online courses? I'd never done that before. I've taught, but only in physical classrooms. I record these videos, which is a completely different mechanism of communication. But to conduct an online course, which is live, means that you will be instructing, teaching someone, guiding someone through an entire course curriculum. And then you will have interactions. You will have a conversation with your students or whoever is attending it. And that was uncharted territory for me. I didn't know how I would be. I didn't know where to start. I didn't know what tools existed. Beyond the obvious of the Zooms and so on, there is, I'm guessing, a lot that I had to discover. And that began the journey of me learning something completely from scratch and figuring out how it works. And here's how I did it, which is the 3 steps that I'm going to share with you as well. Number 1, basic common sense. You just get your facts right. You just get the terms right. You know enough, study enough, research enough, observe enough, watch enough, listen enough, whatever is it that is your dominant way of learning, to know how to have a smooth, informative conversation with anyone who is from that arena. So if you are, let's say, going to become a video creator or a content creator, there are lots of terminologies, there are lots of basic things that everyone needs to know before they have a conversation with someone who's been creating content for a while, so that there is no big gap in what they're saying and how you're comprehending it. That gap is narrow there nonetheless, but narrow so that you at least absorb or understand what is it that they have to tell you. So you get the facts right. So what did I do? I just literally Googled how to conduct a webinar, how to conduct online courses, and I read and I read and I read, and that's the natural form. But here's what I figured, and this is something that I knew about myself already. I have the dominant mechanism of learning as watching. I watch people do things, and that's when I learn the best. While I can read and I can write and I can listen and I can also do, which all of us can, watching makes me learn the fastest. So I then just jumped into a lot of video content. While I could read whatever there was, but wherever there was a video, I was absorbing more. And I was getting the fundamentals of what's the difference between a meeting and a webinar? What's the difference between how do you go about executing it, the course curriculum that's shared, how do you have interactions live, what is it that are the different forms and mechanisms of it, everything that is needed. What's the setup like? What kind of an internet connection do you need? All of that content is available now and in abundance. There is no excuse for us not to know or delve into something new. It's just how you go about doing it, and this is the start. So the first thing that you do is get your basics right, get your terms right. And then the second thing is you go deep having conversations with experts, people who do it right. People that you would want to become, that you would want to emulate, that you would want to be inspired by, that you would want to replicate in their thinking, in their process, in their mechanism, whatnot. So what did I do in this case? I subscribed to almost all the top webinars that the world has to offer. Not just in India, not just in Delhi, but literally globally. And these were live conferences, 99% of which were free. And that was because we were in a lockdown, people were creating a lot more content than usual, so I benefited from that wave and literally attended hours and hours and hours of content which was just streamed live, was being conducted live by possibly the biggest experts. And I covered all possible dimensions. Recognize, I wasn't there to learn. I wasn't there to know anything about the subject. I was there to only observe and watch. How is a webinar conducted? How is an online course delivered? How is a live conference conducted? And I learned so much from historians in the US as professors running courses for their students, to public speakers running webinars on how to speak confidently, to content creators running webinars on how to market your content, to HR professionals running webinars on what are the best practices to get people productive while working from home. Literally, all sorts of topics covered, all sorts of time zones, all sorts of different tools, whether it's Zoom, it's Webinar Jam, it's GoToWebinars, it's Microsoft Teams, anything and everything that I could lay my hands on. I was subscribing. I didn't have to go through the entire 1 hour or 2 hour. I was coming in to get a feel of what it is, spent 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, got the pulse of it, checked in, checked out. If I felt that I could learn more, I stayed around longer. But everything was around spend time with experts, get to see how the top-notch execution of whatever is it that you need to know happens, because everything else will be a compromise. And if you set your target there, then you will know how to hit that. You will at least know what it takes to get to that point. And when you do that journey, you just observe so much. You just learn so much about everything that's happening. You just learn all the possible aspects that there are, right from the fundamentals to what is it that the top practitioners, everyone who does that knows and knows best, and that's the level you want to get to. In the last month, I also got really active on Twitter. And I wanted to increase my following on Twitter. I wanted to get that community built. So what did I do? I read up on the basics, and then I started following the experts, not to learn from them, but to observe and watch how they played their game on Twitter. I created these logs of how different people that I thought were doing a good job on Twitter were tweeting. What were they tweeting to? How were they responding? What is the frequency of it? To whom were they replying? On what topics were they replying? Was there a pattern? Was there a typical length? Was there a certain time? Was there a certain topic? Was it very relevant? Was there a certain theme? Whatever is it. I made notes and notes and notes, just watching them, observing them on how they did that. And that taught me so much about how to play the Twitter game. I'm still early in it. I'm still learning. But I find it fascinating to learn something completely from scratch and then get good at it. Which brings me to the third and the final thing of what you need to do to learn a new thing. And this is honestly the game changer. Because if you get to this step, this stage, you get to a point where the clarity is just doubling and tripling in your mind. And the stage is, whatever is it that you've learned, can you get it out in a fashion that you can teach someone else? You can teach someone else so that they can start their journey on doing whatever is it that you have taught them. And so this video of mine is as much as creating content as it is to try and teach you what is it that you need to do to learn something new. Because that's what I learned about running webinars on online courses 3 months back when I started. And I've done that enough number of times. I've done that to a point where I understand it a lot better than most people. I'll be one of the few people who've been running paid webinars and successfully so, despite the fact that there is this plethora and rage and complete chaos around free webinars and all the content that is being produced. And I think it's only happened because I became a student again. I went deep into what it takes to be at the top of that curve, not somewhere middle, not somewhere mediocre, not someone average, and then worked my way backwards to get to this point where I can confidently teach someone how to do that. And I'm going to create that content, and I've been doing that, but that is the final step and the most conclusive one at that. So these 3 steps: cover the basics, get the fundamentals right. It's on Google, you'll find it, but once you know what your dominant learning curve is. Number 2, speak to experts, follow them, listen to them, watch them, work with them, do whatever is your dominant style to get to a point where you are not measuring yourself at the average or the mediocre, but the top absolute pinnacle. And once you do that, and you do that well, and you understand that well, go into that mode where you teach it to someone else. You may still falter, you may still not do a great job, but that process of teaching someone else, of guiding someone else through that discovery, through that journey, will bring unmatched clarity to your own head. Until next week, I'll see you all on Warikoo. All the best. Have a good week. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that whenever we put up a new video, you're aware of it.